first day, we had similar pass rates. Do you agree? Kind of. So, right. When I start my presentation, I would like to start first with Judge Kevin Castle from New York Federal Judge. He was looking at a case which may or may not be happening in healthcare. The case basically, it's a lawyer who uses ChatGPT to produce court documents, affidavit, and legal briefs. And ChatGPT found a way that the legal brief will need some support cases, or they call it precedents. So what the ChatGPT did is basically bogus or create fake cases. The court at the time said a red flag, and they say courts now are faced with a unique challenge never seen before. And they request that these two lawyers to come back to the court for a specific day. I believe it was 8th of June this year. And they held hearing and they asked, what about this case? Because these cases are not in the legal system. After the conclusion of the case, which had happened about a couple of weeks ago, the judge said, very interesting statement. He did not try ChatGPT. He tried, in my opinion, the business judgment after getting the result. So let's read what he says. The honorable judge said, technological advances are commonplace and there is nothing inherently improper about using a reliable artificial intelligence tools for assistance. So there is nothing wrong of using the tool. So where is the wrongdoing where these lawyers have been charged with $5,000 fine each, and they actually were looking for some sanction, which did not happen, and an apology to the court, which did not happen. He said the problem is, but existing rules impose a gatekeeping rule on attorneys, in our case will be on caregivers, to ensure accuracy of their filing. So still, in the current existing rules, laws, regulations, the issue is not using the tool, the issue is the human endorsement of the rhythms or the decision of the tool itself. If some of you are interested to look at this case, they will find that the judge somewhere else, he says, my issues is not the wrong cases or bogus cases. His basic issue is the lawyer stand by a fraud or cases which do not exist and started to defend their documentation because they start to repeat that these cases did exist. I started with this summary because when we deal with healthcare or patient care, we have a regulated practice. I believe in all nations we have regulated practice. So it must be some rules which help us from, which protect patient from getting more problems or more trouble. So if this rule still exists, we have not to disqualify or discount this tool in our analysis of AI. How to source. You can ask any question and give it a comment if you like. My agenda today is I will first have as a brief about Africa in the international AI orchestra. And we call it orchestra or we call it framework because it's not an AI system. It's a platform. You can train it different training sets and produce different programs or different decision making to the same same problem from different sets. We talk about a little bit about modern healthcare. We talk about current state of AI in African healthcare. There are key policy considerations, and this is my personal opinion, not the academy opinion. I'll speak a little bit about challenges and opportunities, and we will have the normative emergency in Africa, and there is a little bit of concluding remark and road ahead. So when we try to understand the platform, there's what we call it Global AI Index. Global AI Index is a study made to describe which countries worldwide are really have readiness to adopt, accommodate AI technology. Our Black Africa is still black. There's 3 or 4 countries in nascent situation, and there's our friends in Morocco, Indonesia, South Africa are mainly in the waking up stage. The rest are either no data or nothing, but there are people that do that thing. Okay? Dangerous situation, you can put yourself as a speaker because we don't know if this is really the actual situation, but this is a credible report. If we understand from this report, from this website below, what kind of activities? So these are the number of companies as of June 23, 2022, which describe what they do in AI. When you look at these statistics, you realize that South Africa, Nigeria, Egypt, Kenya, and Morocco are maybe Ghana and Tunisia as well, they will have each more than 100 companies each. You have to remember that these numbers are self-declared numbers, because I find it very funny because all countries in Africa, they must have cell phone. And for me, there is a preemptive maintenance. There are call allocations done by AI. So any service company like mobile phones, they will have some sort of AI and some sort of research. So they have to declare themselves. So when I look at these numbers, I don't find the rest of the African nation. And also I'm asking, is the African nation did not declare what they have? Or they are borrowing the service from somewhere else? I don't know, because I will not leave this. But in essence, this will show you where is the main activity. We usually look at the economical activities as a sustainable activity, because once you have companies, you have revenue generation, and this will lead to a development economically, making money, and people will keep going and going. So the top 5 players, or we want to include also Tunisia with us, the top 7 players are South Africa, Nigeria, Egypt, Kenya, Morocco, Ghana, and Tunisia. I'm not sure from your search what did you find, but this is some data available on. And this is the most interesting view because it describes what's happening as a national AI strategy. We learned yesterday that Egypt indeed will have a strategy, but the strategy is not activated. So this also shows that when we look at data, we have to be intelligent enough to analyze are this data really relate, because Egypt here, you will find it is in green situation where they do have a strategy. However, Egypt did not activate the strategy according to what we heard yesterday from the actual people from the people in charge. Not from the people in charge, no, we're still trying to figure out what we want to do. So this is what has been known about us compared to elsewhere. Any questions? So if we look at technology and the modern healthcare, they have been classified into specific arenas. So electronic health record for patient personal information or personal record, this is an area where we look at the data information, the forms those people are filling, the prescriptions. The second area will be telemedicine. And the telemedicine is basically to develop medical services or medical consultation on the remote area where the decision making is not in the same room as the patient. So majority of GM cells and holding cells in North America, they are running by telemedicine because they don't send doctors to every prison. The doctor will be somewhere, and even if he's in the prison, he might not be in the same building. So then get our cell phone, the telemedicine has to be cross of nation. Sometimes they are just cross of building. And if you look at psychiatric wards, you look at the presence, you will find there are some situations of telemedicine. The third area is wearable device. How many of you have such electronic watch? Either you have an iFit, you have an Apple Watch, or you have, oh, by the way, do you know why they call it Apple Watch, not iWatch? Does anybody know why they call it Apple Watch? Like we have an iPhone, iTunes, everything starts with I for Apple product, but why do I call it Apple Watch, not an iWatch? Now, there was a case which is Swatch, against a small company in California, produced what's called iWatch. And the judge found that Swatch, which is a very common brand in Switzerland, is very similar pronunciation to iWatch. So they strike the trademark. This is just a side piece of information for you guys. And this is the reason why when Apple produced the Apple Watch, did not say iWatch, it said Apple Watch. So they can roll the code across North America with the same name. This is the legal aspect out of it. Then the fourth element here in digital or modern healthcare is artificial intelligence, and the last item is 3D printing. And 3D printing is available for dentistry, for some limbs reconstruction. And I did not see in any of our discussions that we look at these different areas as separate areas. AI here is the actual diagnosis. We usually talk about AI, but we don't separate in our discussion in a small room that there is an AI for the electronic record, there is an AI for the telemedicine, there is an AI in the wearable devices, which is almost everybody now has one, diagnosing and the 3D. We always, and this is part of the confusion we have, and this is part of what we look at. The current state of AI as monitoring Egypt, Africa from Egypt is there are three different levels of engagement. One is emerging initiatives. Countries like Mauritius, Egypt, and Kenya may start to produce some kind of policy. There is also some collaborative work which has been done through the African nations and the last one was basically private sector involvement, which is the tech separation process of the nation to develop solutions so they can serve their interests. Our understanding is policies will go first around patient safety. There's also an aspect to it in data privacy and security. There's ethical consideration and regulatory oversight. And this is basically what we have been looking for around here. We discounted infrastructure deployment, interoperability, liability, and accountability. So these are the 7 aspects we foresee. And I will just, for the sake of time, I will run through the headlights and I will leave my presentation for you guys if you like to read it. I try to make the slides complete so people can read. The last 2 elements in any policy, it shall consider training and education. And when you talk about training and education, we have to consider healthcare provider and the patient training so the patient will understand, and research and development, which basically is a technical research or policy research, which is part of what we do. The challenges is there is a resource limitation, diverse health needs, and we need to have a global partnership because Africans do not have the source for this technology, and nobody can really get the technology and use its own because it's either too expensive or they don't have enough data or the ownership of data is not diverse enough to create credible data. So these are the challenges and opportunities for African nations. If we look globally, we will find there are a couple of initiatives. EU, as any EU initiative now, they want to have the lead worldwide on defining the outlines of how to use AI. And they have this task force, they have this concept of building a special council, like different United Nations kind of operation. However, on the other hand, we see 2 main countries. One of them is the US, which they do have through HIPAA and the other group that they have in FDA. They describe what medical devices could do, what different protection, data protection, but all of them are advisory stuff. China has some regulation for their own country as advisory. It's not a regulation in terms of as strength as law. So, good news, there is no laws anywhere. Bad news is court will make its own decision once a case will demonstrate itself in the court. So you are now under the mercy of judge. So do we need a policy to protect the developer from the judge decision, and also to protect public wealth and individuals, or shall we leave it on its own? We create the awareness, we create these events, we talk and learn and train without trying to come up with a real policy. I'm not sure. The normative emergence in AI in Africa is there is a development nation AI strategies. Mauritius was started before Egypt about 2 years ago. Zambia, Tunisia, Botswana. There is an establishment of AI agency, task force, commitment, or committee. There are some countries are trying to go into the AI laws and the regulations they are trying to build or thinking about. And this is what I could get from different searches online. There is an initiation of public search, public sector reform in some countries. There is a driving AI specific education, and Egypt here has the lead in Kafr Sheikh University to define the very first institution in Africa to teach AI specifically. Osma will come and say, does it really teach AI or computer science with the application of AI? I would say, you know what? We have the title, so we don't. Okay, so these countries will have some sort of AI specific training and education. There is a strategic partnership building among different countries, and there is an approach of fostering what we call it Pan-African approach to AI, which usually is through the African nations and African Union and different, because African countries are in so different organizations. My concluding remarks are integration of AI in healthcare hold immense potential, but its realization require a well-thought-out policy framework. Policies that should give a priority to patient safety, well-being, while fostering innovation. We cannot stop AI because we have a perception that somebody will die one day. Everybody will die, no problem. We should keep pushing the innovation to the limit. We'll talk about it. Collaboration between AI developers, healthcare professionals, policymakers, and patients. Because the patient is the subject. AI holds the premises of giving each patient a personalized healthcare service. So patient is part of it. I didn't see any patient in this meetings. However, AI can significantly enhance their lifestyle. I couldn't emphasize training as much as I could, because we need to train everybody. Policymakers, we need to train them on technology. Technology, we need to train them on policy making, on policies. Patients, we need to treat them on so many things. There is an enthusiasm for AI in Africa, which is very variable, because there is an ambitious board that this will bring a significant income to different countries, and it would be the way for us to compensate our low GDP currently. It also helps our population and our small young generations and small companies to create business and make people profitable, because it's not difficult to develop. It's not hard to test and validate. And it will be at that point a decision-making strategy to use African AI with homegrown technologies to treat African population. I will leave you with that, and I will have my presentation if you need to have any details, and I'm so open to have any discussion with you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Well, and thank you very much for sticking to the time. But I really appreciated your point about patient awareness. I really appreciated your point about even patient training, patient awareness, and policymakers' awareness. Like everybody needs to understand the other side in there. But thank you very much, Kelly. We can take one quick question, and then if we have time at the end, we'll have questions for everybody at the end.
Thank you very much again for the talk. I'm specializing in AI. I was just attending a conference in Gambia. We were talking about Africa and how we can proceed with AI, because we tackled many crucial points, talking about ethics, talking about regulations, how can we do it, talking about governance and so on. So Can you tell us your view, your perspective, how we can deal with these challenges if we are to implement AI in healthcare in Africa? Thank you.
One of the questions, that's a big question. So very briefly, your recommendations for how Africa should proceed.
One of the observation we had, and I was actually organizing a conference yesterday night online, and people shared the same observation, which I would say. I have been in so many events over the last 3 months. I mean, every other week, I have maybe 5 to 6 every 2 weeks events. We ask ourselves one question: why are we looking for ethics and policy without realizing the technology first? We are trying to control and manage how people are using what we don't know. Nobody knows that if we use it for radiology, you will get an accuracy good enough for patient to accept and good enough for health authority to accept. We're still looking to stop and try to create a fear. And the observation I have is people in North America, they don't have this fear. They proceed. People in Europe, they proceed. The discussion of AI and wow, it will take my job. Wow, it may kill me. Wow, it may do this mistake. It only happens in us, in the country of the southern part of the hemisphere. It does not happen in northern countries. And if it's too dangerous, why did it not stop themselves? Is it will be bad for human population? Is it will be bad for the humanity? So why the big name companies, multi-billion-dollar companies, did not stop? And why they ask everybody to stop? So we have to be careful. Yeah, the policy is very important. So legal is very important. However, we need first to see the product, then try to legalize the use of it. People did not legalize marijuana in North America without trying it out for so many years and see the difference. So
yes, your point for the proceeding answer the question is we let the technology move. And I know what you're going to do, and I'm going to answer you. We let the technology move. We're going to let the technology move first and then do the other things with it rather than wait. And we've learned from the past that if you let technology go very far and you don't have the policies, you're in trouble. But you're right that we don't want to stop it and wait. So I think what you're suggesting is to move, let's just go.
Because it's more emphasis.
And I really thank you very much. And it's always good to have someone who stirs the pot and asks questions. But I think, Doctor, if you wait with us for the recommendation section, because we're going to go after you then as to what next. What next? We sat here and people are working very hard to give their opinions and they're actually taking it very seriously. So we are going to put all our we are going to put all our hopes on the African Union if we're going to do something Pan-African, and then it will be you presenting this to the African Union and emphasizing the importance of it for the people. Anyway, for the interest of time, because we have 2 speakers coming up and the title of the talk.